In this series of videos, we're going to be making our factoring cards for a resource to use and recall the essentials of factoring for this and other classes that you're going to take that use algebra. So what we're starting with is a regular index card. In this one, it's a mid-sized index card, so it's 4 inches by 6 inches. You can choose a bigger or smaller index cards depending on how big you write and how things will fit on the card for yourself. I recommend a hole punch in the corner so I can connect the cards with either a binder or a rubber band. And this video will be our cover sheet with our overview of the types of factoring. So this usually goes on top of all of my other cards, and we'll explain a few of the types as we're writing them on the card. So we have our title on the card in case we're making other resources for the class. It's nice to know what we're specifically looking at. And our first step, whenever we factor, anytime we start factoring, we're always going to find the greatest common factor, or the GCF, and that's what we're going to pull out of every single term to make things smaller, and then we'll have stuff in the parentheses. So once we've divided out the GCF and put it in front of our parentheses and then have what's left for a polynomial, once we've reduced everything, our next step that we're always going to do is we're going to count the number of terms inside the parentheses, because that will tell us what type of factoring we're going to be using after the GCF. All right, so once we've counted our terms inside the parentheses, we have our GCF divided out. We are going to start systematically. If there's 2 terms inside of the parentheses, we're going to check what types of numbers or terms they are. And the first type that we're going to look at is a difference of squares, which is going to be a perfect square minus a perfect square. So once we look at the 2 terms, and if it's a difference of squares, you're going to have those perfect squares, so we're going to be reviewing all of perfect squares. The other type of binomials that are factorable with a pattern or a formula are the sum and difference of cubes. So with the sum or difference of cubes, it will become a formula. It's actually one that we don't see that often, so we do like to have it so we can refer to it. And then systematically, we usually look for 3 terms. We're going to put 3 terms first, even though that's more work to do, and we really are going to look at the 4 terms first, but order of steps for a number of terms. We're going to look at the 3 terms, which are the trinomials, and there's a few ways we're going to be factoring those. So trinomials are generally what you're going to see the most in problems that you're going to want to simplify. And those are going to be 3 terms. They're either going to be the nice ones, which are x squared, where the lead coefficient is 1, x squared plus bx plus c, or the standard ones where that lead coefficient can be any number, and then we just usually call it ax squared plus bx plus c. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, so you're going to have some options as to what cards you're going to want to definitely be focusing on, and you can change orders of things as we go along. All right, and then the last type of, when we're counting the terms that we're going to be encountering, are those 4-term polynomials, and we're actually going to be using that's the skills of the 4 terms when we're dealing with the trinomials with the way that I factor and show you steps. There are a lot of shortcuts that you can find as you get familiar with the processes. However, I usually do make all of my trinomials into 4-term problems first, use that way to finish factoring. So we're going to keep them in order on the card. However, we are going to put the videos up out of order. And with the 4-term factoring, you get to choose which way you want to do it. Depending on how you're used to multiplying polynomials, you can use grouping, which is similar to the distributing or the foiling with the arrows, or we can also do 4 terms with an area method, which is where you'd be making the box and pulling out GCFs that way. So 4 terms, those are going to be totally preferences of what you're going to be doing. You're going to keep both cards, but you get to choose which way you like better. They both work exactly the same. And then we will start our next videos. So as I mentioned, with the 4 terms, we're going to be using the greatest common factor, which is a recap, again, of the beginning of the card. I recommend using different colors to color code the cards, but you can do it however you want. I will have steps in different colors. and it's going to be these are going to be your cards, and you'll make them for yourself.